Uh, Let me ask you, has everyone by now created the first servlet and tested it or deployed it with your XML tags as well as annotations? I mean, or annotations. It's working fine. And I hope you got some idea about the web application structure and the request response flow. So let me open today's sequence. Yeah, one more thing I wanted to ask you. I had given you some DAO layer related, the topic tutorial, that content management system based DAO layer. Have you completed it almost the day before? Okay, so because today you will require it. And like I said, page by page we are going to develop. So over time you are going to require it. So let me start with the today's contents, today's main topics. So we are going to start with, after the revision, of course, we are going to start with servlet and database integration. So you already know about the database layers. So when you talk about servlet JDBC, only change would be the tester, the topmost layer will be replaced by servlet, and rest of the ladder, that is DAO, POJO, DBUtils, and database is going to be the same. So that is the first thing we will do today after the revision. Then, as I told you, it is not, when you develop a web application in Enterprise Java, it is not a single page application. So for successful login, you will be actually navigating the client from login form to, let's say, from the login servlet to, let's say, next page is what? Topics page. When user chooses a particular topic, from topics to tutorial page, etc. So you will learn about page navigation techniques. And as we already said yesterday, is HTTP protocol and HTTP server stateless or stateful in nature? They are stateless in nature. Means what? Ordinarily or automatically, can your server remember the client across multiple requests? Answer is no. So that is where you will use, or that is where I'll show you the cookie-based session tracking, then HTTP session object-based session tracking, and will remember the client from login to logout. Okay, so these are the main topics of today. Let's see what all we can cover. So start with a quick revision and we'll continue to our today's topics. So yesterday we have started with Enterprise Java. Java EE stands for Java Enterprise Edition. And you know, from Java EE 8 onwards, it is maintained under Eclipse Foundation and also known as Jakarta EE. So what does a J2E consists of? Java EE consists of specifications. Implementations are elsewhere. It only consists of what is to be done, specifications, and specifications for which specifications for what? Specification for primary services which are essential to build the enterprise applications, industry grade applications. So can you give me 2-3 examples of primary services? Connection pooling. Yeah, not only connection, yes. No. Kunal, online shopping is the web application which we develop. I said the essential services which are required for building any web application. Security, yes. Persistence, web, what is that? Web services. Then the naming service. Servlet, the first one you should say servlet specification. So managing the servlets, as in managing the life cycle, maintaining the life cycle is all done by the container. So these primary services are essential. Java mail, sending mail, etc. So all these services are provided. Provided means specified by J2E. So why J2E 1.8 or Jakarta is so popular? Because as I've already explained, it can support different type of clients. So which is the type of the client we have attached or we are planning to attach throughout the Enterprise Java? Is it a web client, as in thin client, Java client, or a smart client? Answer is web client. So what is it you will require on the client side? What are the prerequisites? Do you require any Java components? Answer is no. Web browser and the net connection is the only thing. Yes. What is the other reason behind J2E being popular? It offers you server independence. When I say server independence, don't misunderstand me. I'm talking about any Java server independence. Meaning, yesterday I have talked about some vendors and their project, their products. So suppose we are developing it, deploying it today on Tomcat. Later, when you join your organization's companies, they are not using Tomcat, suppose, and they are using Glassfish or JBoss or WebSphere or any other thing. Will you have to touch anything? Will you have to modify the server-side web application, Java application? Answer is no. The same web application can be redeployed and can work on the any J2E compliant server. So that is your write once, run anywhere. And the third advantage of using J2E is you as a developer, you don't have to build, you don't have to save your, you don't have to waste your efforts on developing primary services. In simple English, do you have to manage the servlet lifecycle, as in invoking init service destroy at proper times? No. Container does it for us. So that is what I mean. So ready-made implementation of primary services is supplied automatically by the J2E server. So it is very, very important to understand who is providing you what. So who provides the specification of primary services in J2E, or also called as Java E? So that is your, you can say, earlier it was Oracle purchased over Sun Microsystem, or you can say Eclipse Foundation today. So these are the specs providers. These are the ones which will provide the specification, and implementation is left to what? Left to whom? J2E server vendors. So there are two type of products, web server and application server. So what are we using currently? Are we using a web server or a application server as a Tomcat? Web server. Means what? Does it have a web container as well as EJB container? Answer is no. There's only one container, web container, which can manage the life cycle, or which can manage your dynamic web components. So EJB is a fading technology. That is why they've removed earlier. 4 years ago, I guess, we were teaching EJBs also, but that time Spring was not so popular. So now, Spring has already overtaken the whole market, not whole, but yeah, majority of the market, where the EJB based projects were there. So you are, even if you have application server in your organization, such as JBoss, WebLogic, WebSphere, you will be largely building the web applications using Spring Hibernate. So this training will definitely be useful. So coming back, these are the popular servers, popular products. I hope you must have realized very important thing is understanding request and response flow. So I have already written it in this quick manner, but you can tell me. So suppose this is, okay, before I say suppose, who sends the request to whom? Client to server or server to client? Basic question, simple question. Client to server. And how? In form of a URL. You know that. So suppose this is the URL you send. So let us start analyzing the URL. So what is this part called? I've written it already. You can read it later. So what is this part called? HTTP is what? Start responding fast. It's the protocol, or also called as the scheme. Okay, scheme or a protocol, right? Next one. So the moment you say HTTP, which is the transport layer protocol we use internally, it uses internally transmission control protocol, or TCP, followed by network layer IP. Okay, so this ladder, these layers are fixed. Next one. What is this? Highlighted one, DNS qualified host name. Very right. So DNS is what? You can read that. Yes. It is nothing but a domain name service, a mapping service which is based on the IP layer. So after this part of the URL is traversed, where does the request packet reach? Before you start answering, please open that diagram. What is the outermost layer? The host hosting the web server. Then you have a web server. Then you have a web container, and then you have innermost web application. Everyone is clear with the layers? Yes, absolutely, Prashant. So now your packet has reached the host, which is running, where you are running your web server. So which is the default HTTP port, where your Tomcat listens on? It is 8080. But as you saw, some of you were having port clash. So can you reconfigure the port to any other number? 1024 onwards, free port? Answer is yes. Which is that server configuration file which Tomcat reads, which we had edited? Which was the name of the file where we made the changes? Server.xml. In server.xml, there is a tag, XML tag called as connector. Connector tag has an attribute port. So the default value of the port was 8080. So we changed it to, I think, 9090. And now at least my web server, some of you may not have changed it. For those it is working, don't disturb. You replaced it by some other port. So now tell me, who resolves this port number? Is it a TCP layer? Is it a transport layer? Or is it an IP layer? TCP or IP? Port number. Guys, come on. The host has already been resolved by your IP and DNS. The port number is resolved by TCP. So the range of port numbers is 0 to 64K. And here, this is like one of the free ports. So now, after that, whatever remains, what is it called? What is the, but what we call it as? No, path is fine, context root, yes. URI, Uniform Resource Identifier. Okay, same discussion. When I talk about RESTful APIs, REST APIs, backend, REST API endpoints, they are identified by Uniform Resource Identifier. So it will be a continued discussion later. So this is your URI. What is the first part of the URI? What is this part? Is it a URL pattern or is it a context root? It is the context root. And when you create a project, Eclipse project as a dynamic web project, by default, whatever is the project name becomes the context root. Immediate question and the answer. Can I keep the context root different than the web project name? For example, suppose I start in the minute, day 4.1, I create a dynamic web project, and I don't like this. I want to call it as CMS, the content management system. So when you create the dynamic web project, when you say next, there is a what do you say, wizard, there's a screen where you can change it. But I'll suggest don't change, unnecessary confusion. So this is nothing but your URI starting with context path. And currently I have not done this, but suppose I'll ask you. Suppose, let me say this, input.html. Suppose I'm just checking your clarity. So this is not the URL pattern. But if I say, for example, /input, without having the extension of .css, .js, whatever, images or whatever. Now tell me, what is this /input considered? What is it called? And without any extension /input, what is it called as? This is called as URL pattern. Everyone should know this. So this URL pattern specifies the mapping. So tell me, if your container, a web container, sees this as an incoming URL pattern, what it will do? It has to resolve, it has to service this request. So what will it do? It will refer to the map. So tell me, who is going to create exactly? Who is going to create this empty map and when? Web container, and when, please? At the deployment time. Of course, you have to give the deployment instructions using either XML or your annotations. That part we will revise later. So suppose the map is already filled with key and a value. Key and a value means what? Entries, mappings, correct? So now, then your container will check, is there any mapping? Is there any entry with /input as a key? So map.get, you know the get method, map.get /input. So if it returns null, what will it send it as a response? If there is no entry found, what will be the response naturally? HTTP 404, the page not found. But suppose it finds the entry, then your container will check, has this class, is this servlet already been started? As in, is the servlet lifecycle already started? But if it is the first request, your container is going to wait for the first request coming from the client. So tell me, if client is sending the first request to the servlet, what will be the first thing your container will do? Class loading. So where this class will be loaded? In the server side method area or client side? S or C? Of course, server. Guys, in client side, there is nothing, there's no Java there. There's only client side web browser and a net connection online, basically. So of course, server side method area. After loading the class, what is the next thing your container will do? Instantiation. Init is later. So instance will be created. How many instances will be created on the server side heap? One or multiple? Singleton instance. Guys, what I'm describing is the lazy loading of your servlet after the first request has been received. So the class loading followed by instantiation. So for instantiation, is it going to use the default argumentless constructor or the parameterized constructor? Parameterized or default? Which constructor your container will use? Answer is default constructor, where we have added servlet container is equal to web container, cannot figure out, cannot understand, cannot call any argumented constructor. So default constructor. And now tell me, which is the first lifecycle method which will get called? That is when the init method gets called. Tomorrow you'll understand there is something called as dependency injection which is happening in between, but a servlet config and all I'll explain, but that is later. Okay, so coming back to the point, now the servlet has been loaded, class loaded, instantiated and initialized. Now tell me, is now servlet ready for servicing the client requests? Ready or not ready? Of course it is ready. So now tell me, web container will call which method of a servlet? Which method will be called? Service method. Very good. So service method belongs to, okay, so hold on. You are very right. So let us test the API also. So you can open, I don't think I have opened today. Please open J2E docs as always. The first thing, give me a sec. You also open it if you have not opened it currently, Java E8 docs, index.html. So start telling me, which is the starting point, which is the interface where everything starts. Give me the name of the interface, root interface. I hope you have gone through this yesterday. Of course, you are right. The name of the interface is servlet. I'll just search for generic servlet because then I'll find it faster. Okay, so I'm going to start with servlet, don't worry. So servlet is the root interface starting point. This servlet interface has how many methods? 5. Out of 5, 3 are lifecycle methods. Give me the names of lifecycle methods. You know that we keep talking about it all the time. Init, service, and destroy. The moment I say interface, it is not having any default or static methods. It is having all these public abstract methods. So what is that servlet config? Like I said, I'll tell you later. This is nothing but the dependency. So focus on, init we have discussed, focus on service. This is your public abstract service. Now tell me, what are the 2 arguments of service method? Servlet request, servlet response. Are these interfaces or classes? I or C? Interfaces. So where will you find this interfaces specification? Under Tomcat lib, will you get it under servlet API jar or Catalina jar? Servlet API.jar. When you change the web server from Tomcat to some other J2E server, what will change? Specification, implementation, both or neither? Of course, implementation, which is your Catalina jar will change. That is server specific. But servlet API.jar continues to be the same. same specification followed by different server vendors. So now going ahead, what is that implementation class? Okay, by the way, other two methods, get servlet config and get servlet info later. Get servlet info is just returning the information, who has written this servlet, which version, etc. But servlet config is important tomorrow. Now, what is the implementation class of the servlet? You know the answer, generic servlet. So this generic servlet class, is it a abstract class or is it a concrete class? A or C? It's an abstract class. Which methods are abstract and which methods are concrete? Abstract method and concrete method. Service is abstract, init and destroy are concrete. Okay, so they have given you default init and destroy methods, but the service method is kept abstract. So you can see that. Does it represent HTTP specific servlet or does it represent protocol independent servlet? The moment you read generic, generic is what? Generalized. You know, generic types and all. So general purpose. But if you want to use, if you want to enjoy HTTP specific features, which today you'll see, HTTP session, cookies, redirect scenarios and all that, what should you use as a superclass? Should we extend from GS, generic servlet, or should we use the superclass as a HTTP servlet? Of course, HTTP servlet. So, servlet interface implemented by generic servlet, extended by HTTP servlet. Got it? So, this is the hierarchy, which is the interface it is implementing servlet and serializable. That is why you have that serial version, unique ID and all that. Okay, now, so now, yeah, you are telling me. So this class, HTTP servlet class, is it an abstract class or is it a concrete class? Abstract. Which concrete is a wrong answer. It is an abstract class. So tell me, this is. So once you say this, can it be instantiated? Of course not. So why they have kept it as abstract? So that servlet developers like you and me, we will have to extend from it. Okay, so that goes without saying. Now tell me, which methods of this HTTP servlet are abstract? Answer is none. None of the methods are abstract. So now follow the flow. So here, when the client sends a request, which method will be called? You know the whole story. There are two service methods. So which service method will be called? Protected one or public one? Public service method will be called. We are still into protocol independent, generic kind of a world. But it's not going to do anything. It is simply going to dispatch the request to the protected service method. Now tell me, have we entered HTTP world? Are we now HTTP specific or are we generic still? Now we are talking about HTTP protocol specific thing. Now, what is HTTP servlet request? Sub-interface of servlet request. What is HTTP servlet response? It's sub-interface. So they are related. Now, when you say service, as a servlet programmer, will we ever override this service method? It's a yes or no question. Do you ever override this protected service method? Answer is 100% not. Why? Because, see guys, it has already done us favor. It has already done something. Why should we repeat and all that? So, it is already doing the dispatching to different do star methods based upon the incoming HTTP method. So, simple question, simple answer. If you are sent the request using method equal to get, which is the method this service will call? Do get. For post, for put, and for delete, do delete. Okay. Just wait for whatever, 8-10 days, I don't know, 8 days or something for our spring training. And you will see these methods will be replaced by annotations. And you are going to see at get mapping for, getting a resource, at put mapping, at delete mapping, at whatever post mapping. So these are things are connected. Learn servlets well, you will understand the rest of the J2E very fine. Okay, so coming back to this, which is the, okay, so let me say this. Are these do star methods? Let me say do get, for example. Is this do get method, what is it called? Abstract or concrete? The do star methods I'm asking you. Are they abstract or are they concrete? A or C? They are concrete. But if you don't override any of these methods, what is the response? Which is the response status code your servlet will send to the, what is it called? To the client. 404 is wrong. 404 is not found. 405, method not implemented. So because see this, I'd said this long back in threads. You remember thread class? Thread class is an implementation of runnable, has a run method, but a blank implementation. So even when we say extends thread, we still had to override the run method to supply our business logic. You remember what I'm saying? Extends thread scenario. Likewise, these do star methods are concrete, agreed, but they are do nothing. They will only, see this, they will not send any response body, nothing. They will not execute any business logic. So that is why this pattern. They have made the class abstract so that programmers will have to extend from it, subclass from it. But programmers do not have to waste their precious bandwidth in overriding all these do star type methods. You can take a call. Suppose the data is coming via, request is coming via get, which is the only method you need to override, do get. If the request is coming via post, do post. So that is why this pattern, keeping the class abstract and making all the methods concrete. Have you read this regarding HTTP servlet, that short readme which I have shared? So that there I have discussed this fully. Okay, so coming back to the point, you come to do get. Now go faster. Do get, do post, we don't care. So now tell me, what is the first step which we typically write? We start writing logic here, request servicing logic here. So what is the first step we generally do in any do star type of method? Yes, set response header. Which header? Content type, set content type. Which is the typical content type we send here in the servlets and JSPs till I take you to REST APIs, text/HTML. After setting the header, what is the next thing we do? Open the print writer. Yes. So, okay, let me say this. If you want to send text/HTML character data, we will use which method on response, HTTP servlet response, get writer. If you want to send some binary data, which is the method you'll use? Get output stream. What is the return type of get writer method? Print writer, which is what we have been using yesterday. And what is the return type of get output stream method? Servlet output stream, which extends from your binary output stream, which is capable of delivering the binary response. So right now we don't need it. Focus on print writer. Now tell me, which is the method of the print writer you use to write the data, to write the response body? Print is the only one we will use. Print, or there is a write method also, pw.write, pw.print, anything you can use. And then you can write your dynamic contents or, HTML contents and all that, and send the response. So tell me, print writer is auto closable. So when the try with resources is over, what will be the method JVM will call? JVM means server side JVM, web container. What it will call? pw.close. So when you say pw.close, what will web container do? It will take the response content, response body, and it will send it into the response packet. Web server will arrange the response packet. What are the three important sections? Status code, headers, and response body. And then this response packet will be sent to your client browser, ending or completing request response flow. Everyone understood the request? I mean, everyone has got the feel of request response flow? completely with servlet. So all of this I have specified. And you know that web container is the most important entity, most important player in your web programming. And you know, it does so many things for us, including request response object. When you say the argument of do get is HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response, who is creating this request response object? PRWC, programmer or web container, web container. Who has been managing that init service restore invocation, web container? Who is going to give the ready-made support for all these services, web container? Best part, who is going to take away our headache of managing the concurrency, managing the threads via some framework called as executor framework, web container, and cookies or session tracking and so many things, redirection, so many things you are going to learn today will be all managed by the container. But you know that container is not this thing, a magician. So it needs instructions. So which is that instruction manual, web.xml. Where do you add this web.xml? In any folder or a specific folder? Give me the name of the folder, webinf. Lowercase or uppercase? All uppercase. So that you know, J2E compliant folder. So any web application which we create with IDE or without IDE should have webinf. Below webinf, you will see, IDE creates it for you, web.xml. So this is going to be created by the developer, of course, with the help of IDE. But who is going to process it? Web container. How many times and when? Exactly once at the web application deployment time. How do you deploy web application in your IDE? Right click, run as, run on server. That easy. And if anyone asks you, fine, suppose I take away your IDE, how will you deploy your web application? No issues. Under Tomcat Home, there is a hot deployment folder. What is the name of that hot deployment folder? Web apps. So you just copy your web application under, for example, banking application, e-voting application under the web apps folder, and it will be automatically deployed. But I'm not showing you all this. I mean, you don't need that because we'll be working with IDE. And largely, mainly, what does a web.xml consists of? Deployment instructions. So which two deployment instructions you have seen so far? Welcome file. What should be the welcome page for this particular website? And you have also seen the servlet deployment tags. Many more you will see shortly. Getting the feel of web.xml? So that is when you create a web application, please check this checkbox and include that web.xml. Otherwise, later you'll have to say right click, Java E, and create that deployment descriptor stuff. Of course, towards the end of our J2E, last few days, important few days, when I take you to Spring Boot, that can be your project technology. You don't require any of it, but we are like away from it so far. Then we had entered servlets, and you have seen servlet is a class which has never a main method, but it is consisting of lifecycle methods. And yesterday I could show you only two things: response generation using that print writer and the request processing. So let me ask you, if I want to read the email and a password sent by the user credentials, which is the method of your servlet request you will use? Get parameter, request dot get parameter. Yeah, requesting method is post. I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you API. So which is the method of the servlet request interface? Get parameter. What goes in? What is the argument? String parameter name. What does it return? String parameter value. So suppose you are taking, enter the date of birth. Is it going to return it in a string format? Or is it going to return it as date? Answer is string. And who will have to do the parsing from string to date? Servlet programmer. Are you understanding? So wait for a couple of days. When I take you to something called a JSP using Java Bean, and you will see that web container will do this parsing. So there's a lot of learning. Today, just focus on servlets. And you know the job list: business logic, response generation, managing the DAO layer, navigating, all will be done in a servlet. So then we had talked about two different ways of deployment. Tell me, which are the two different ways in which you can deploy a servlet, in which you can give the deployment instruction? Yes, please. One is the annotation, other one is the XML. Which annotation we had used? The name of the annotation? @web servlet. Is it a class level annotation or a method level annotation or a field level annotation? Class level. So I'll just write it since it is important one. So suppose this is the incoming URL. Suppose I'm into day one web, whatever. And suppose as an example, I've written something @web servlet. Imagine all that Java servlet annotation, all this. You don't have to supply value, but suppose I said it's here. And then if I say public class, my servlet extends from HTTP servlet, right? And this is your some servlet class. So this is your class level annotation. So who is going to process this annotation? Web container. Once exactly at the deployment time. Everyone knows that. And what will be the entry? You know about everything about the map. So when you deploy the web application, for every web application, container will create this request mappings map. So what will be the key and what will be the value? Suppose the package name is P1 or pages or whatever. The key will be what? /hello. And you're right. And what will be the value? Fully qualified class name, which is P1. Somebody had yesterday created a default package and it wasn't working. Guys, web container cannot find out any default package content. So adding a package servlet is a must. So suppose I say P1 is the package name or pages. So pages.myservlet. And here, so this is one. Or, you know, there is an option of XML tags. Can I supply? Yesterday we spent a lot of time in the lab together. What will happen if you deploy the same servlet using annotation also and XML tag also? Will it work or will it not work? Of course, it won't work. So it is either or. So here, if you go the, what do you say, precedence wise, yes, ambiguity. So if you go the precedence wise, your web container first looks into the web.xml. If it doesn't find, then it will go to web servlet annotation. So please don't confuse the web container by putting it both the places. And which are the XML tags? Of course, I'm not going to write all this. Servlet tag, which has got a servlet name and servlet class. And accordingly, I mean, parallelly, in conjunction, you should have a servlet mapping, which has name and the URL pattern. So the point I'm trying to make is whether you deploy it with an annotation or this, this is an important statement. We'll go further from this. So at the time of application deployment, web container tries to populate the map of URL patterns either from XML tags or from web servlet annotation. And that is what is added as the entry in the map. So URL pattern, or you have seen yesterday, I can give multiple URL patterns also, become the key, and the fully qualified class name becomes the value. So this was a detailed revision of what we said yesterday. Are there any specific questions, such as you did something and you did not understand it, or whatever? I mean, any specific question, please ask before we start the today's things. Write is, yeah, it is very similar to print. Only thing is the internals are slightly different. It converts into binary and then sends it. But For a programmer, write is same as print. Okay, so let me not wait for our questions. Oh, you are this thing. Post is not safe and not that important. So safe means, see, safety means there is this one. What do you say, Anshumala? You should read little bit about the on the net also. Safe. Which methods are considered safe? Those who do not change the state of the resource on the server. So tell me, when you say post, what is it we use the post for? For creating the resource. So that is going to change the state of the resource, as in it is going to add a new resource. So that is why it is not considered safe. I think you are confused between safe and secure. Post is a secure method, but that will end up the changing the state of the resource. So that way it is said. So guys, not just her, anyone, please look up for HTTP methods. If I find a good link, I'll share it with you. I'm just going to Google it and search it. HTTP method, safety, security, and idempotency. Okay, so they have a nice table and they describe what is the meaning of safe, secure, and idempotent. And trust me, it's a popular question. Okay, so that way. So you also feel with this thing, you have your WhatsApp group. Anyone comes across a get is the idempotent. I've given the whole thing, Nidhi. Please read it in HTTP basics. Okay, so share the link in your, WhatsApp group. So if anyone comes across a good resource, definitely share it. So others also can read it. Resource means article. If I find a good link, of course, I'll share. So that way. So let us continue. We have already spent almost an hour only on the revision. So what we have talked about is, so far, what you have seen is, what is the default loading policy of a web container is lazy. Two words, lazy and eager. What is the meaning of this lazy loading policy? Web container will start the life cycle of the servlet when? Right at the application deployment time or after the client sends the first request? You know the answer. If and only if, or rather, after the client starts. How we have confirmed it? We have SOP'd in init, and init method was getting called after the client sent the request. So now the first easy topic of today. Can you tell the container to give up the laziness and work in an eager manner? So what is that eager manner? Can you tell the web container to load the servlet right at the startup of the startup of the web application? In short, web application deployment time. Answer is yes. Can you change it to eager? Of course, the answer is yes. So before I tell you how is very easy, but I should tell you the use case. When will you require it? So if you have written, listen to the statement carefully. If you have written a time consuming means heavyweight initialization method, and if you are kept the loading policy as lazy, I'll say this again, your default loading policy is lazy and your init method is, let us say, time consuming. Time consuming means what? I've given the example, which is what we are going to do in a couple of minutes. Database integration. So you have set up the database connection, which is definitely time consuming. Preparing the statements, time consuming. Later, when I take you to Spring MVC, you will see that there is a servlet, special servlet called as a dispatcher servlet, which will which will bootstrap entire Spring framework. So coming back to the point, anytime your init method is time consuming and you have kept it lazy, who will suffer? What will suffer? The first request coming from any client will suffer. So why keep that? Why make even the first request response sluggish? So can I tell the container to load the servlet, to keep the servlet ready, to start the life cycle of the servlet directly at the web application deployment time? Answer is yes. And that is possible via both. You can either give this, what is it called? Annotation element, property in the annotation. The name itself is load on startup. Or can I do it equivalent in XML? So in XML, you have servlet tag. Servlet has a servlet name, servlet class, and you have a corresponding XML tag, load on startup. So this is what we are going to test it in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. And then we'll go to database integration. So before that, I hope your STS and all is ready. Whoever wants to work along. First, I'll show you the from Java docs, the whole thing. So look for the annotation, web servlet. You know the annotation. You know the value. Value means that URL pattern. But there is another one called as another argument of the annotation, another property of the annotation, load on startup. So this is what we are going to supply. So here, this is what is the default value of this load on startup? -1. So if you keep the default value as -1, when will your what is it? When will your the life cycle begin? On the first request or at the application deployment time? After the first request. So you can change this to either 0, but typically we give the positive number to indicate the order. So here, if you make it change from -1, such as typically a positive number, then when will container start the life cycle? At the application deployment time or this thing after the first request, application deployment time. So let's confirm this in 2 minutes and continue. So, and then of course we will use it. We will use it in our servlet JDBC integration. So open the STS and you can start by creating our first project. Today is what, day 4? Yeah. So I'm following that. Day 4.1. I hope now after giving yesterday lab and whatever practice, everyone is comfortable. Day 4.1. Here, I don't have the conflict with JDK 17. So my project facet and all is all JDK 11. So I'm not doing any modify, any hacks I don't require. Only thing I'm changing is the web module version to 3.1. So now you know, you must have already got what is it is required in your case. I think that is, anyway, let me not waste your time. So this much. Next, no changes here. Do we require web.xml? 100% yes. Till we start writing, till we start using Spring Boot technology. And then we won't require. So create this. Created the dynamic web project. First, initial steps are all easy. So here, let's remove the unnecessary welcome files from web.xml. In a day's time, you start getting used to all of this. And anytime you want to revise. Yesterday, I told you, being the first day, I took the whole revision and the whole thing done. But every day, I don't want to do that and eat up your lap time. So all you have to do is import my web application in your workspace, open index page and press all the links. Everything I'll be putting it in index page and it will take you just half an hour or 40-45 minutes at the most to revise what we did together. I'll take one revision likewise. So to give you the idea. Anyway, so where should I create this index page? Under the root. What is root? Map to SRC main web app. Right click on web app, new HTML, index page. And here, let's add a link here to test the, we'll have one servlet will have with a eager loading, one we will have with a default lazy loading, and you can spot the difference. So href, test one, lazy loading of servlet, which is the default, And the other one we will create it as eager loading. So keep it ready. Just the two links. Done so far. So now I'm not going to do anything new in the servlet. I mean, for the first servlet, I don't require. So let's create a servlet 1, servlet 2 types. So under src main Java, new, a servlet. Never ever create a default package servlet. Give some package name, including pages. Let's call it as servlet 1. Okay. Next, this URL pattern, it is all about understanding and matching. So we have spent a lot of time. What will happen if you skip the slash, etc.? So add the slash test1, servlet1, map to test1, matching with that href of your link. And because I want to show you that whether it is lazy or what is it called, eager, I'll have to override init, destroy, and do get. If init, destroy, and do get overridden. Getting the feel? Managing comfortably? So generated. Now, if you have written only this much, when will the servlet lifecycle begin? After the first request. As I told you, remove this init, and which is that overloaded method we will end up using always is the one without argument. But what is the difference? What is that servlet config? All tomorrow. Ignore. So just add SOP in init. And now I don't want today. Yesterday I've shown you a little bit about threads. More on threads again tomorrow. But I just want to tell you in init of, I want to find out this is the init method of which class? Any remembering? How do I find out the name of the class? Which has the name of the current class, get class is the method. So this get class, guys, returns you java.lang.class reference representing the loaded class in the memory. So just add that. Do it fast because our real job is case study solving. But this is a kind of a prerequisite. Mute all, please. And here you can add in do get of. Okay. But if you do only this much, no response, you will see a blank page. Guys, somebody had made a mistake yesterday. When you say system.out, it is the standard output of a server-side console. So all this is going to appear on the server-side console. If you want to send any response body, what should we use? A print writer connected to the response. So do that fast. Now I'll not write all these comments. Response.set content type, hoping that you have already settled there. So this part is like a, skeleton part. You can keep a copy of template code and you can paste it whenever we create more and more servlets. And then you have a print writer and all that. And all I'm saying is something. Testing lazy or whatever, eager, lazy or eager, loading policy, something, some SOPs I'm just giving. And just to check that whether it is, changing timestamp and all that, you can say new date or you can say local, whatever that, local date time, anything. So this is all. The focus is on loading policy. Focus is on not the other part. So I can send you this in case anyone wants it. SRC main Java, pages, servlet. Oh, I said it as servlet. Oh no, it should not conflict because that servlet will conflict with your servlet interface. My mistake. Please refactor it as servlet 1. Servlet name interferes with that Java is dot servlet dot servlet. Unnecessary confusion. My bad. Just rename it as servlet 1. So I hope everyone has renamed this servlet 1 map to test 1. You let me know when you complete this much. By mistake, I named it as this. Okay. So now this is your, what is it called? Lazy loading. Don't run it because we already ran it couple of times yesterday. Now, what we are going to do, we're just going to make a copy of it into servlet 2. And what will be the change? Will it be loaded eagerly or lazily? Servlet 2? You're saying lazily, this is already done. Eagerly is the correct answer. So follow the steps. Follow is nothing, just copy. So copy servlet 1 into servlet 2. Okay. So just copy servlet1.java into servlet2.java. Done. Now open servlet2.java and tell me what will happen if you have two servlets mapped to same URL pattern. You've seen it all yesterday. Will it work? It will never work. Ambiguity. Illegal argument exception. So first thing, guys, in copy pasting, you forget all these things. So first thing is change. And I hope you remember, we are matching it to test 1 and test 2. So servlet 1 is deployed under test1/test1, servlet 2 with /test2. But if I do only this much, when will its life cycle start? Lazily or eagerly? Again, lazily. So here is the change. So now, when you want to add that load on startup, you can't use this default argument. So give the name to this attribute. You know all about this value. And which is that additional attribute to tell the container to load the lifecycle on the startup. The name is load on startup. Okay, so it is basically an order. What order? You'll understand in 5 minutes. Give any positive number, let's say 1. So let's just do this much and I'll ask you a question. Who is going to read these? Who's going to process these instructions? Web container once at the deployment time. And the moment it sees the load on startup value, other than the default, which is -1, when will it start the life cycle? Right at the application deployment time or later? Later means after the first request at the deployment time. So this is what we are going to confirm. So I hope you realized I've copied this, but the name of the class here, what will be the name of the get class here? Servlet 2, and we'll be able to observe and conclude. Understood what I said? That get class was done to tell you which is the servlet which is getting, whose life cycle is started. You'll know it in a minute. So I hope you have done all the changes. Time to run. Time to deploy. Right click on day 4.1. Run as. Run on server. Next. If there are other web applications which you were trying yesterday, day 3 lab and all, say remove all. Keep only one application at a time. The server becomes faster. And say finish. And as usual, watch the console. Don't even come here. I'm saying no hurry. Please go to the console and tell me any servlet's life cycle began or not. I mean, anything you observe, 100% you will see. So whose life cycle has begun? The servlet 2, which was loaded eagerly with load on startup of 1. Understood the load on startup? eager versus lazy loading completely. Okay. So now tell me, how many instances of how many servlet instances are there in the heap so far? Only one. Okay. Now go to the client browser and now tell me the first one is the first servlet, servlet one. Has it been loaded yet? It's a Boolean question. No. But once I send the first request, will it start the life cycle? 100% yes. Confirm. So click on this. Of course, you will see the timestamp and all that. That's not important. Now tell me, do you get exactly the difference between lazy versus eager loading? This was loaded eagerly. How about this? When this was started, when the life cycle started after the first request. Understanding it completely? Now, if you go to the client again and see back, and if you send the request to this, tell me, which method will be called? Init or directly service leading to do get? Of course, service and do get, because the life cycle, I mean this thing, what is it called? The servlet one, oh sorry, servlet 2 has been already loaded. So I'll wait here for a minute. Confirm. Tell me, have you confirmed? Have you got the same output? And most importantly, forget this. Have you understood it? Okay. So this was just a small thing. If you say no, I don't want to use the annotations, just let us do that also in a minute. So whenever you are making changes, please stop the server. So I'm going to show you the same thing, but with a XML. So stop the server, go to servlet 2 and comment it. Finally, we are going, I mean, your choice. I will say always use the annotation, but in case you want to do it without this, this is your, I mean, what is it called? Commented this. Comment that you can't have annotation and XML deployment. Open your web.xml and let us add that servlet tag. Oh, I'll send you this in case you want it in a fast manner so that you don't waste the morning time. Servlet name, you got servlet class, and then you also have got a load on startup. It will tell you exactly. The load on startup element tells when this should be loaded, instantiated and having the init method on the startup or not. It is all. And that number is nothing but the order. So suppose I want the servlets to be, first servlet 1, then servlet 2, then servlet 3. Give the ascending order. Load on startup 1, load on startup 2, load on startup 3. And in the same order, your container will start their life cycle. Anyway, so this is one. So the other one is servlet mapping. Servlet mapping, no change. The servlet name and the URL pattern. Okay, so that was second one, right? So /test2. Name can be anything, as you all know. The servlet class pages.servlet2. The same output you are going to get, and you can mention any load on startup factor. Let me send you these tags in case you want to. You don't want to type, suppose. Okay. So I'm showing you can achieve the same result even with a XML tag. The tag name is load on startup. And when you restart the server, or you can deploy, you don't have to restart the server. You can directly deploy the application, run on server. And now you can say finish. Watch the console again. And you will see same output, the eager initialization, the servlet 2 loaded on startup. I'll wait here for a minute. You let me know whenever you have tested it. I'll keep the web.xml in front of you. You should get the same result, whether it is a annotation or whether it is a XML. Working fine? Okay. So that was a small point. Now we are going to actually start with our work. I'll just wait for another half a minute so that more and more try it out. Again, I'm repeating myself. No pressure. If you say no, Java E, J2E, I want to learn first properly in the theory session and then I will try it out. That is the reason I write such an elaborate sequence. So those who are not coding along, simply open the sequence and I keep writing the objectives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, solve them on their own. That way it should be. Okay. So whichever way you want, code along. Servlet 2, yeah, I'll send you this one, Komal. I'll send Servlet 2. I have commented this. You cannot, Komal, you cannot deploy it using annotation as well as XML. So please comment this line number 17 and add the corresponding XML tag. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So this is how we are doing it. Web.xml. I just now shown this. Wait a second. So I'll create. This is not our workspace. I'll create a zip and give you two seconds. 4.1. So that whatever is missing, you can have a look at it. I'm sending you day 4.1 zip. You must have messed up this thing sequence. Sequence is important, Shubham. First servlet name, then servlet class, then load on startup. I'm sending you the stuff. Don't worry. So day 4.1. When you say XML file web.xml, it has the DTD. That is, it is not. It's got a schema which is coming from predefined document, web application 3.1 XSD. So you cannot have any nesting. You have to follow the predefined sequence. That is what must have caused the error. Anyway, I have shared the whole thing. So now, what is it we are going to do in the remaining days or remaining time is start solving the case study and continue with that. Okay, so here, B3 help. What I would suggest is keep this case study open, topic tutorial, so that you will know what we are doing. So can I start, guys? It's just a basic initial discussion. So here, I mean, later when we create it as a separate project today, we are just going to get started with it. So let us start. I'm not going to walk through the whole thing. It will unnecessarily waste time. You already know the flow. So what is our next job? I'll tell you the next job. I think I had given you this requirement yesterday. Add a link, let's say user login, or let's say customer user login is good. When user clicks on the link, this form should be downloaded. Now, understanding me so far? Everyone clear what I'm discussing? We are starting with the case study. Okay. Now, this form will be submitted to which now I want the form processing. I want basically a validation, authentication. So this form will be submitted to a servlet, cannot be a HTML, because this is where we will connect to the database. And then what is it we will do? We will connect to the database and we will fire the query. I hope your user DAO, user Pojo, all that part is ready. So tell me, guys, I'm going to otherwise give you the ready-made code. Has everyone completed DB utils, user DAO, user Pojo part? Okay, so I'm going to ask you to copy that in a minute. So let me discuss the whole thing and then we'll start the development. So we are going to write in couple of minutes a login servlet, or you can say authentication servlet, validation servlet. But do you want to mix up? See, servlet is already overburdened with request processing, response generation, business logic, page navigation and all. Do you want to write a data access logic here, or do you want to separate it into the DAO layer? Everyone knows the answer. But now the servlet has to manage the DAO layer. Manage means what? So the answer is already here in the case study diagram. So here, what is it we want? Somebody means servlet has to create the DAO instance. So how many DAO instances will you require? One or multiple? One instance. So which is the servlet lifecycle method, which is called by the container exactly once in the beginning? Init method. So I have given you the answer already. We are going to write a login servlet where the form will be submitted. You must have done only the display part. This is your email, this is your password. We are going to modify that. So in the init method, we will create the DAO instantiation. But at the end of the web application, when you shut down the server, which is the last method in the life of a servlet container will call? Destroy. So what should I use it for? We will override the destroy method and call the cleanup. Everyone knows DAO's cleanup, where we close all those prepared statements or callable statements or statements and finally close the connection. Everyone got me? So that is what it will be. And now I told you, since it involves a password, I want a secure, guys, I'm not saying safe HTTP method. I want a secure HTTP method. So which is a secure HTTP method? Get or post? Post. So which is the method we'll have to override here? Do post. And in this do post, we will perform the validation. But we don't have to call any, what is it called? JDBC logic. So who will be calling whose method? For which purpose? Servlet will be calling a DAO layer method, CRUD API, authenticate user or validate user or login user, whatever. That method will return the user pojo if in case of successful login or null in case of invalid login. So we will check all of that. If it is null, what does it mean? Has the user logged in successfully or not? No, invalid login is the answer. So we'll give a nice retry link with a message, invalid login, please retry, and we'll take the user back to the form. We'll navigate him back to the form. But in case of successful login, what we want to do is we want to redirect. We want to navigate the client to the topics page and show that these are the available topics. But guys, if I start doing it at this rate or this whatever speed, you will not understand. So let us break it down. Okay. So in case of success, forget these pages. We will build one page at a time. Like you used to build one component at a time and then put it in the router, navigation, browser router and all, one page at a time. Okay. So we will focus on this. In case of a failure, retry link. In case of a success, we will print that these are the user details fetched from the database on the same page, using the same page. So forget about other pages, focus on only one login servlet. Is the discussion clear? Is the objective clear? Completely? Okay, we are going to build it, page by page and complete it. Okay, so now I have already broken it down into steps. So reference case study is what I'll do is I'll share just a second. I'll share this sequence with you. So and of course I'll keep modifying and towards the end I'll upload it all in the Google Drive. So that you'll know what I'm talking about or what is the today's plan. Where is that sequence? Yeah, I've sent you the sequence which I'm referring, which I'll keep, adding things. So download that sequence. And the reference case study, which we are currently solving for your servlet, is the content management system, which is topics, tutorials, and all that. So spend a minute with me in the design phase. So which table we will require for the login purpose? Users table. You can keep your database also open so that anytime you can cross-check. Right? And There are very few tables, but yeah, whatever. So here, so we have a tables here. We have users. I hope everyone has got a user Pojo created so far. You have dbutils, which has a static method to return a fixed database connection. And I hope you have already got iUserDAO as an interface and the implementation class. Everyone has it. If not, I'm not sure. If even if one of you is not having but want to code along, let me send you a ready code also. But guys, if you have it, continue with your code. You don't have to take my this. So in the ready code, let me see. Yeah, I've got all the Pojos here. Anyway, I'll send you this in case you want it. Otherwise, ignore. If you have your working tested DAO layer and a Pojo and all that, ignore my code. But in case somebody has not completed, only the login part I'm talking about, you can definitely take this. So let me send this as well, so that we don't waste time in the JDBC part once again. Okay. So if you open this ready code or your code, which are the you open your earlier JDBC work, right? JDBC 2.1 or whatever, JDBC Day 2 lab and all, and copy from that Pojos, utils, and the DAO package. I'll give you the, I mean, you don't require my instructions. You have already created your Pojo, DAO, and utils. Simply copy those packages and place it under. One small instruction before I go ahead, stop the server first. Anytime you are developing, better to stop the server. Otherwise, it will keep on getting reloading unnecessary. And paste it under. Where are you going to paste these packages? Under which folder? This is all Java content. So paste it under src main Java. Okay. Control V. Oh, I've got some user implementation. Okay. So there are some method names which are different. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll correct it. If you're using we are using the method name as open connection. If you're using my code, I've got a wrong method name here. So please change that fetch connection to open connection. And it should work. Yeah, the error should go away. I'll wait here till you have got your, I've not got the whole thing I'm not giving you. I'm just giving you the focus on user first. Topic and tutorial will get there over time. So I'll give you a minute. If you're copying from my dbutils, please check the database name, username, password. Why I have supplied this additional close connection method, you will understand it later. Currently ignore. So right now just do this, open connection. Then check the Pojo, the user Pojo. Currently all you'll require is user Pojo. I hope I have done it all correctly. And then the user DAO. I'm giving you a minute to settle. Our user DAO had just a validate user, and user DAO implementation has all of it. Okay. So, and if you're using my code, you can add here connection this also. If connection is not equal to null, connection, our original code. You let me know when to continue. I'll start. So I want you to copy your existing working dbutils, Pojos, and the DAO layer. 0 point in doing the same thing, everything from scratch. Today's focus is servlets. I'm waiting for your response. You let me know. So guys, check this. Your project should look like this. So we are talking about D4.1. So it should have the, I'm going in a bottoms up manner. dbutils should have your own username, password. Pojos. Currently, you are going to require only user Pojo. But if you have already built the whole thing, you can bring in all. And this is your I user DAO and DAO implementation. Can I continue? Nobody wants me to wait, right? Okay. So now let us talk about important things. So I have written this down in a sequence. So here, wait a second. Right. Anytime you want to talk to database, the API which we use is JDBC, later Hibernate. So what is the zero thing? What is the first level? Can you talk to the database without using JDBC jar, without using that JDBC connector jar? Answer is no. So the important things. So you have to, how we were doing it in core Java? We were simply saying add external jar. Is it going to be the same hereafter in web applications? Absolutely not. That jar file, that MySQL connector jar has to be either, listen to this, copied under, you have your webinf lib folder. So copy paste it under that. Don't do that. Hear me out. So here I am just telling you, you have src main web app, you have a lib, and this lib folder is specific to your web application jars. So if your web application requires JDBC connector, paste it here. But the point is, guys, of course, it will be added automatically in runtime class path and things will work. But suppose we develop 10 different web projects, day 1, day 2, day 3 till day 10. And all our web projects typically use databases. So in that case, how many copies you will end up having for 10 different projects? 10 different copies. So tell me, 10 different copies sound a better idea or a single copy sounds better? Always single copy. That is via a suggestion. Sorry, that is via the other one. So instead of copying that connector, JDBC connector, under your webinf lib, guys, you have to do this copy pasting only till maybe this week. Sometime in the next week, I'm going to show you Maven project management tool, like your NPM. And then you don't have to do any of this. Over time, you'll learn. So, which is one place where you can copy it? Answer is Tomcat lib. So now, and I have already done it for you. So please open your Tomcat home. When I say Tomcat home, everyone understands the folder where you have extracted Tomcat. So open your Tomcat home and check the lib folder and check that updated. You remember a day before or what, or yesterday, I guess, or day before, I had asked you to copy this. So please confirm. Under your Tomcat lib, this MySQL connector existing. Everyone got it? Okay. How do you confirm whether you have access to it? Very easy. Go back to the STS ID. You can collapse this. And this thing, what is it called? Yeah, expand this Apache Tomcat. This shows you all the jars which are available in your runtime class path. And as everyone can see, MySQL connector jar is present. So after starting with web application programming, are you going to say add external jar and add the MySQL connector ever? What is the answer to that? Answer is never. Okay. So this is already done. This step is already done exactly once. All the applications which you deploy under Tomcat, I've already copied the MySQL connector. So that step is done. Now focus on next step. So this is the step which I have already given for you. I mean, already taken for you. And which are the layers we are developing? All the layers earlier you have seen it in your JDBC discussion. Only thing is the servlet. The only thing which we are going to develop is the servlet. Everyone with me? But before jumping into the servlet, you might be having that login.html. I have not yet copied. So anyway, we are creating a new project. So copy that login form. We'll change the method to post and we'll submit it to login servlet. Do it along with. So I think in yesterday's help I had given. HTML pages, open HTML pages, take this login form, and where will you copy this HTML? Under the context root, which is mapped to SRC main web app. Copy the login form and edit it slightly. Change the action to authenticate. I can keep it login 3, but login 3 sounds weird. So authenticate and change the method to post. I'll wait step by step. You must have done it already yesterday. So you can copy that thing. So when the form is submitted, after the login submit button is clicked, two request parameters are going to be sent in the body of a request, which are EM and pass. Okay. So this is the thing. Now connect this form with your index page. Means what? Simply add a link. Guys, when you reach the lab, in the first 1 hour or whatever time, I want you always to do the day-wise revision. So hereafter, that revision is going to be very easy. Just import the project. I'll give you instructions in writing and just go through all the links. Press all the links and your revision will be done. Anyway, so here, let's have the login.html and here you'll say user login. So added the link. Everything will take the user from the home page or index page. So when the client clicks on this user login, we will be sending the form in the response body. User fills up the form and after user clicks on the submit button, the next request is going to be submitted to the servlet ending with URL pattern. So tell me, currently, if we write only this much, what will be the response after the form is submitted? 404? Oh, spelling is wrong. Oh yeah, thanks. Am I correct? Authenticate. Yeah. So what will be the response here? HTTP 404. So you tell me now, what is the next step we have to do? Which is the next step? What is the next thing we have to create? A servlet, of course. Again, I'm saying if you have already created that yesterday login servlet, simply copy it. Okay. So I don't have it, so I'll create it. You want, you can create it from scratch. So here, SRC main Java. You can expand that. We already see every folder, every package has a separate thing. So naturally, don't create it in DAO. Right click on pages, new, and we can say a login servlet. You can say login servlet, validation servlet, authentication. Everything means the same. All means the same. So just check whether you got a package name and a name of the class extending from HTTP. Next, what should this match to? I hope you got this idea of mapping /authenticate. I hope now I'm matching the spelling properly. So this has to match with form action with a preceding slash. Next. And now you tell me. Constructors we don't require because default constructor is already supplied. Which methods we decided to override? Which method should I override? You know the answer. Yeah, only do post. Is it only do post? Init, destroy, and do post. In init, we are going to instantiate the DAO. In destroy, we are going to close everything as in clean up the DAO. And you don't require do get because the form is submitting the details to post via post. So do post. So init, destroy, and do post. If you make a mistake, do get versus do post, you'll get HTTP 405 method not implemented, or this particular method is not supported by this URL. Reached here, the servlet got created. Now, think and answer. If I write only this much, what will be the loading policy your container will use? Lazy or eager? Lazy. Now, tell me, okay, before I say something, please make the corrections. Don't use this init overloaded method. Use the other method overloaded. Keep the other one without arguments. So now think and answer. What is it we are going to do in the init method? You already know the answer. User DAO. Let's be precise. Later we will add topic DAO, tutorial DAO, everything. Currently, user DAO instance. So servlet is going to call the constructor of a user DAO implementation. And when you say open connection, the maximum time you require in JDBC is for opening and closing connections. So tell me, that means, what does that mean? Is the init method going to be time consuming or the fast one? Slow or fast? Of course, time consuming. It is going to take time. So now tell me, should I leave it as lazy loading or should we change it to eager loading? Everyone understands the use case? See, if your init method is fast, then you don't require this. Otherwise, we need it. So now make it as eager loading. So here you can give the attribute name. If there was one attribute, the default attribute name is value. But now I want to add URL pattern and load on setup. So please give that value equal to this. Fine. And that's why I showed you this separately. Load on setup one. So now, when will web container start the life cycle of your login servlet? Right at the application deployment time. All the statements clear so far? Okay. So now earlier tester was creating the DAO instance in the initialization phase. Now your servlet is going to create it. Okay. So if I say here user DAO IMPL, let's say user DAO is equal to new user DAO IMPL. So if I just wanted to create a user DAO instance. So tell me why there is a compiler error. Yeah, so this one is better answer is unhandled checked exception. Take a cursor there and you'll know which is the unhandled exception, SQL exception. SQL exception is a checked exception. So which approach should I use? Okay, let me ask you. Can I say throws servlet exception, comma, SQL exception? Can I use the throws class? So 100% answer is no, but I'm sure some of you might be thinking, why not? So tell me, we have done all this earlier. So this error goes away, but this error comes. Why? What is the problem? You remember the statement? Yes. Overriding form of the method. Can it add a new checked exception? Answer is no. Everyone understands it? So I don't have that solution. So which is the only solution we have? Try catch or throws? Try catch. Okay. So surround it, you can, okay guys, you don't have to do too much. I mean, for understanding you do it, but if you just take a cursor, click on this, it tells you surround with a multi-catch. I don't want multi-catch, so surround with a try-catch now. Oh, it actually went to multi-catch. So here, just a second, wait a second. My DB utils 2 minutes, DB utils. Why it is saying multi-catch class not found? 2 seconds here. I'm not actually adding this. It should not have class not found exception, just has this. Let me check what is happening. Oh, user DAO MPL is wrong. I know. If you are taking it from this thing, guys, remove this. This is no longer required. You don't require that class.for name. If we require, we will add. I was wondering why it is requiring all this. So I straightened it, I fixed it. So here, this is your try catch. So check Are the compiler errors gone? Only add one. Catch SQL exception. Is the compiler error gone? Okay. But now we have a what do you say? We have a thing to learn. So please pause your coding. Stop coding because I'm making an important statement. In short, what I'm explaining is nothing but the new topic, centralized error handling in the servlets. Okay. So here, which are the layers we have in our application? You know these layers. Servlet calling the dow layer methods. Dow layer hitting the database with the SQL queries through JDBC driver. Getting back the results. Mapping those results using POJOs or, collection of POJOs and all, and sending it to servlet. So I have a simple question to ask. So are we going to do the exception handling in the bottom layers, or do we do it typically in a centralized error handling manner in the top layer? Everywhere you do it, or only do it in the top layer? We do it in a centralized error handling manner in the top layer. Okay. So if you check, don't get confused my English or whatever my statements. Take a look at it. Here, we are everywhere saying throws. We are not handling those any of the exceptions in the any of the dow layers. Agreed? Understood? Accepted? So now, who is delegating the exception handling to whom? Your dow layer is delegating the exception handling to the servlet. Clear so far 100%? Because I'm going to say something new. So now let me ask you a simple question. Suppose something went wrong in the user DAO implementation constructor. What I'm talking about example is, suppose currently it is all locally hosted, but suppose your database service is down. So naturally, when you try to open connection, you are going to get an exception. So I'll repeat the statement slowly. Suppose things go bad, things go south. I mean, things go wrong. There's some exception in the line number 27. Is your web container going to know about it or not? I'll repeat it's an important question. So I'll repeat it again. I said, if anything goes wrong in the init method in this try block, will web container know about the error, or will web container not know about this error? Knows or does not know? You are saying does not know. You are right, but I'm not sure. Let me tell you why you are saying that. Let me ask you, why web container doesn't know about this error? Wrong answer, Srinivas. Okay, Yogesh is right. Okay, so let me say this to all. Let me ask you simple questions. Who is going to call this init method? Web container. When? At the application deployment time eagerly, or after the first request? Application deployment time. I'll say that doesn't matter. But the moment, so imagine container has called your init method. But are you absorbing, handling all the exceptions, or are you delegating the exception handling to the web container? Handling or delegating? Handling. So will your poor web container ever know that initialization failed? I mean, it's a question. Will it ever know init method failed? Answer is no. So you'll say, so what? The point of so what is, your container will happily, ignorantly think that initialization has succeeded and it will continue the life cycle to service and all. But now you tell me, if your database connection itself is not opened, or if you have a problem in initialization, is it correct to continue with the remaining life cycle, or is it better to abort the life cycle? Continue or abort? I hope it is making sense. I'll repeat the last two statements. In any case, if the initialization of a servlet fails, Is it logical to continue with the remaining life cycle, or is it better to abort the life cycle? Understood, everyone? Abort. But now we are in a fix, guys. What is a fix? What is a problem? I wanted to delegate the exception handling, so using throws. But the rule is overriding form of the method cannot add any new or broader checked exception. But now think differently. Is there any exception I'm allowed to throw? I as an init method. Is there any exception which a servlet's init method can throw? Answer is yes. Which one? Which is the only exception we are allowed to throw? Servlet exception. So now we are going to use the servlet exception. We are going to throw in the catch block. We will absorb the exception. It could be a SQL exception. It could be a null pointer exception. It could be a socket exception. I don't care. And we are going to rethrow it back by wrapping it in a servlet exception. Sounds complex, extremely easy. So first, let me show you the API, and then I'll show you how, and then we'll do it. So open the Java docs and look for servlet exception, or look for this thing, generic servlet. So if you see generic servlet, the init method has been inherited from that. So search for init method. You will find two init methods. Which one are we using? The first without argument, or the second one? First one. It tells you a convenience method and all. More on it tomorrow. So if you click on it, which is the exception it is allowed to throw? Only exception, only checked exception it is allowed to throw is servlet exception. Read more. If an exception occurs that interrupts the servlet's normal operation, init has failed. So now let us see what that servlet exception is. So click on this and press the hierarchy and tell me checked or unchecked. Everyone knows, simple question. It is a checked exception. And then you have a subclasses and all. So this is what represents a general exception which servlet can throw in case of a problem. So which is the keyword we use to raise any exception? Is it throw or is it throws? Core Java. Throw. Somebody saying throws, guys, don't disappoint me. I said I want to raise, I want to fire, I want to generate the exception. Throws comes in the method declaration to delegate. So answer is throw, and see the answer here. So read this. We override this. We want to create the DAO instance. And now read this line twice. Twice when I say, important. Rethrow the exception back to the web container so that web container does not continue with the remaining lifecycle, does not end up calling the service method. So which is the keyword to use? Throw. Which is the exception you are allowed to throw? Servlet exception. So throw new servlet exception. I hope you understood that much. Open that again and look at the constructors. So there is a default constructor which is kind of useless because the error message will be null. Which was the constructor we were using throughout kind of core Java? The one with the message. Everyone remembers it? We used to create it in the custom exception class and all. But here the norm is give maximum information to the container. So we are going to use the third one. So read it yourself. Which is this? Which is the first constructor argument? Simple, error message. And the second argument is the root cause. See, I am throwing it as a servlet exception, but the root cause could be SQL exception. Root cause could be null pointer, illegal access, anything. So it is always considered a better programming policy to supply maximum information to the container. So this is the, what is it called? This is what we are using. So now read the README and I think you'll understand it. So here, this is my first argument. What is the first argument? The error message. Guys, I'm trying to develop your skills for finally project. I agree you won't use servlets, but the programming pattern or the, what do you say, style is going to be the same. So here give maximum information where the error cause in init. Which class you can drop that get name. You can simply say get class will give you the complete information. And which is the root cause which got us here. So we will add a catch-all block for all the error handling and we'll rethrow this as a root cause. So I'll ask you to read this and the similar thing or rather the same thing we are going to do. So I'll quickly recap. Your init method is the overriding form. So you cannot say throws exception. You cannot say throws equal exception. We have to try catch it. But if you simply say catch all and e.print stack trace, web container does not know init failed. So how to tell web container my initialization has failed. So and please don't continue with the remaining life cycle, which is the exception to throw to the container, which is the exception to be thrown, servlet exception, and which is the constructor we are using for giving maximum information. The constructor here is string message and the root cause. Understood something? Understood the centralized error handling? Okay, so let's give it a try and go ahead after that. Okay, so now just replace this by a catch-all. Because I'm not, see, SQL exception, yes, I'm forced to handle it, but there could be null pointer, there could be illegal argument, there could be anything. So catch-all and never do this. So I'll write in comment. So inform or to inform, let me phrase my English, to inform web container that init has failed. Rethrow the exception wrapped in servlet exception. This is to inform the container so that, you know, container doesn't go haywire and continue with the servicing. And once you understand the concept, API is very easy. So throw, which is the exception we can create or rather which can throw, we are allowed to throw only one. You'll say, I can say throw new runtime. Of course, yes, but this is the standard norm. This is the practice. So servlet exception and choose the one with a message, error message and the root cause. And I will say error in init. But soon you will have multiple servlets. So I want to find out init of which method. Init of which class? Init of, you can say, get class. So I'll get the name of the class and the error root cause is nothing but what got us here. So that is your E. And to give you the API, which is the constructor we are using, I'll write that also. The one which we are using currently is string message, which is your error message, and the throwable is the root, I mean super class of your exception handling classes. So anything under that you can throw. Throwable, whatever instance. I'll wait here, check if the concept, if the understanding is there, because later you'll just get used to it. So this is nothing but called as centralized error handling in servlet. It is a standard programming practice. Clear or last? You take your time. I'll send you this in case you want comments and all of it. Send you. I've sent you this already. Done? Very good. I hope you are doing it with understanding. The moment you feel that, okay, this is becoming too much for me, stop coding and focus on only understanding that way. Now I have the second question. Let me see if there are any questions. Done. Okay, fine. So tell me, if I create this here, the instance, can I use this user now in destroy to clean up and in do post to validate? In short, I have a question. Okay, oh yeah, I already asked the question. Answer is no. So tell me, what should I create it as? Should I keep it as a method local variable in init, or should I declare it as an instance variable outside? Method local or instance variable? Instance variable. Why not static? Because I mean, you can use a static member also, but since it is an instance methods can use static. Typical approaches use it as an instance variable. So pick it up. See, I purposefully do things so that you understand why we are doing it, not just follow it blindly. And you can make it as, and you can have this user now. So now my entire servlet, any method, init, do get or do post destroy can use it. So this is the last modification we did in the init method. So I'm giving you a minute. I know it is a break time, but before that, so tell me now, what is it you want to do in destroy? It is pretty similar. So I just wanted from you. What do we want to do in destroy? Call the cleanup method. Okay, so do that. So here, invoke douse cleanup. You got it? So you have got, that is why I wanted that variable user dot cleanup. Same problem. And let's see how you respond. So start fast. I mean, looking at time. So why there is a compiler error? You just take the cursor here and you know your answer. Unhandled checked exception. Can I add it in the throws clause here? No, because this is an overriding form of the method, implemented overriding form. How can you add a new checked exception? So which is the only solution we have? Try catch block. So you can wrap it in the try catch block. You can click on that and you can say surround with try catch block. Okay. And as usual, it may not have only SQL exception. So you can say catch all here. Now answer. This destroy method is going to be called somewhere in between or towards the end of the life cycle of a servlet. Everyone knows it. End of the life cycle. So there is no continuation. The life of a servlet will be over because after destroy, it is all about garbage collection. So even if you don't rethrow it back to the container, see guys, always understand the point. I insisted that you rethrow it back to the container because init was just the beginning point and we had to take a call whether to continue with the life cycle or not. But anyway, when you come to the destroy method, it is the last hook. You know hooks, like in React hooks we have life cycle hooks. So this is like a last call in the life cycle method, last method. So even if you absorb it, it is fine. So this is also okay approach. But I want to check your core Java understanding. So if I insist that, okay, so I'll phrase it as a question. I don't want it. Okay. Let me say this clearly because sometimes you get confused with whatever I'm saying. I said, this is a perfectly fine approach. Catch all the exceptions. Don't let your container know something went bad. Anyway, it is the end of your life cycle of a servlet. But now I'm saying just to check your, core Java skills, how to tell web container that destroy method failed. Yes, please. Anyone wants to answer? How to tell the web container something went bad? Something, no, fine. How can you say finally? Come on. Finally is you're totally off track. Yes. So you have to say true. So which was the exception? To let the container know, you have to throw the exception. How can you think of finally is like beyond me? Anyway, so, but here, init method was allowed to throw the servlet exception. Can I say here, throw new servlet exception and do the same thing as earlier. In short, do this and change this to error in destroy. Working or not working? Of course, you'll get a compiler error. Why? Because same reason. Overriding form of the method cannot add, cannot throw any new checked exception. So tell me, what is the solution? Tell me the solution. I told you, this is not web Java. This is not advanced Java. This is all about your exception handling learned in core Java. Anyone? Just half a minute. Otherwise, I'll suggest. I'll give you a clue. If I insist on telling the container, but I'm not able to do it, so anyone can think out of box. No. It throws it out already. Overloaded version. There's no overloaded version. Exactly. Mohammed is right. Guys, what is the rule of the compiler? Compiler doesn't allow you to throw any new checked exception. But what about unchecked exception? Does compiler check? Does compiler bother of throwing or handling of any unchecked exceptions? No. So which is the hierarchy? Which is the ultimate superclass of your unchecked exceptions? Runtime exception. And that was his correct suggestion. So simply replace checked exception by unchecked. And that will give you best of both. Best of both means what? You will not have any compiler error. And if you insist, is this really required? I told you already, not required. You can simply say print stack trace. But if you want to write better and better code, more and more correct code, always inform the compiler. Here, you are allowed to throw the servlet exception. Job was straightforward. Here, you are not allowed to throw any checked exception, but that doesn't stop you from throwing the unchecked variety. So that will do the job. Clear about init and destroy? I mean, this was nothing about this was never about advanced Java. This was all about your core Java and exception handling. Clear or lost? So, of course, I'm stopping here, but just by giving you the next steps so that you can think it over. So, init method is done, destroy is done. Your connection is open. I mean, DAO instance is ready. DAO instance is cleaned up at the end. So, what is it we are going to do after the break is the servicing time now. So, client has submitted the form. So, what will be the first thing you will have to do? Setting content type, opening the print writer, I'm not saying. So first you'll have to read the request parameters. Which request parameters we are talking about? Email and password. Which are the methods? Which is the method request.get parameter? In goes the parameter name, out comes the value. After that, who will have to call whose method for authentication JDBC logic? Servlet will have to invoke DAO's method. So invoke DAO's CRUD method, that whatever, a validate user method, DAO's CRUD method. I hope you have done it in the agreed form. In short, it should return you null in case of a failed login, or it should return you the populated user details lifted all the way from the database in form of a user pojo. So check your DAO layer. It should return me a null in case of a failed login or a not null. So when the control comes here, invoke DAO's CRUD method, check. What is it you are going to check? Check the return value. If it is null, what does it imply? Invalid login. So what is it we are going to do in the invalid login? Will you allow user inside our website? Of course not. So here we will give the retry link. So we will send the retry link. Send retry link to the client with a proper message. Invalid login, please retry. In case it is not null, what does it imply? Successful login. Sorry, successful login. And here, currently we will not do any redirection. That is page navigation. That will come later. So we'll simply print. The print means send user details, which are validated user details. I'll say this. Send validated user details to the client. Is the objective clear? So first we will do the request processing, reading the request. Here we are not doing any presentation logic validation. That we will add later. Then we will call the browse method. Servlet will end up calling the browse method. If it is null, it's a failed login. So we will send the link to the client. Otherwise, we'll send the user details. Are the comments clear? Are the statements clear? Okay, so this is what we are going to do after 1 hour's break. So we'll resume at 11:10. Yeah, I'll share the zip file again. Yes, I'll create a zip file, Swati, and share it. Wait a second. So let's take a break here and resume at 11:10 guys. So where are we? Here should be. Let me create a zip again. We have not yet tested it, but once we finish that do post method, we'll test it together. Okay, so I've sent you day 4.1. Anyone who has missed a step in between, continue with that. So let us resume at 11:10. See you around.